Remember that first time I heard you sing a sound like a new planet borning, and I said, "Do you have a girlfriend?" And you shook your head and blushed and laughed, and I said, "Oh, do you have a boyfriend?" Because I couldn't imagine no one there to hear you croon in the night. And in my mind, I heard you sing to that lucky someone every morning, noon, and night, as long as you lived. As long as you lived.
1, 2, 3, 4. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. Oh, hey, all you cool kittens and cats. Meow. Welcome to the Sandy Diamond Memorial. Looks like we have most of our speakers here. Volume check. Check, check.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
good check.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Over here.
Right on, that's good.
Yep.
Okay, without further ado, let's get this party started. I want to thank everyone for dialing in. I know that we have strong reasons for being here, and I'm super grateful for kind of being tapped as the MC for this event.
Woo!
Oh, back at you, brother. And it's a double-edged sword because we have a lot of people who want to share stories about the wonderful Sandy Diamond, but we're not the Academy Awards here, so we're not playing music to get folks off, though I can mute your microphones. I think I can, pretty sure. I would prefer not to, so I ask all of our presenters and the one guy who just asked to be added to be 5 minutes or less, right? I see you, dude. Yeah, it's okay. If we have time, for sure. Yes, please stop waving. Okay, so if everyone can limit speeches, 5 minutes, that'd be cool. Gabriel?
Right here.
You're like Obama, man, so you can speak as long as you want, okay?
I'm just gonna listen.
No!
Oh, Gabriel.
Gabriel.
Boy,
Come on,
what do we want to hear from?
man.
No,
Okay.
come on.
All right, but well, let's see how it goes. So being the MC, I get to go first. We had planned to do this memorial in this gorgeous place
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
with the quarantine and everything, but we're not. I would have said the bar's over there. It's all free. It's top shelf. The crudités are being passed around. You know, a party like we planned 3 months ago when Sandy died. So instead, I would like everyone to invite themselves to drink or whatever your source of joy is, because at some point we will toast Sandy Diamond, who did not die of corona, as most of you know. There were other circumstances we may or may not get into. So everyone grab a drink, so fill them up. And as our speakers do that, I'm grabbing my drink right here. It's a sugar-free root beer, living life on the edge. I encourage everyone watching at home to do the same. Oh, sprayed my computer. Just to be clear, we can see the people on the screen who are asked to speak. The rest of you, you can watch, but know that we can see you. Just kidding, we can't see you, so you can be naked. And you can certainly drink with us, because this isn't a funeral, it's a celebration.
That's right.
There it is, brother. Oh, and no need to applaud for people. A woot here and there is dandy, but there it is again. So I've been thinking the past 3 months since Sandy left us, her obituary said she was like 80, right? Is that true?
79.
Oh, 79. Less shocking, but still.
Today's her birthday.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
I may be an ill-prepared MC, but I can roll with new intel. How about we sing Happy Birthday, just the first line. Ready? Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you.
Oh, that was quality stuff.
Sorry.
So I met Sandy years ago when the director of Centrum said, "We have a poet in residence." Oh, and for those of you who don't know, Centrum is an artist community here in Port Townsend where creative people are given time and space to do their thing for free.
Wow.
Yeah, and
For free.
I've never heard of that before.
hey,
That's
hey,
like
Robert, buddy, do you mind muting?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
So the director of Centrum says, a poet is in need of a backup band. And then he says, when you meet, don't be surprised. She's 4.5 feet tall and she's a hunchback. So now I'm really intrigued. I pull the band together and back her up. And this is not hyperbole when I say she stole the freaking show. There was a Nobel laureate poet there that night. I mean, he was good, but yeah. And then we got invited to perform at a nearby juke joint, and then another place and another, and soon we're gigging all over. And people are eating her up. We even played the Bumbershoot Festival. That year, it was Elvis Costello, Iggy Pop, and us, Quasimodo and the Bell Ringers.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's what she named us. She was so comfortable making fun of herself. She had this poem about a trucker who thought Sandy was coming on to him. She wasn't. She just happened to drive by while eating a banana. My favorite line was her description of his big rig. Anyone remember it?
The last place in America where Macho Man is associated with dainty script.
Ding, ding. So I've been thinking, before I met her, I was a musician who played covers. But when I started working with her, touring, releasing albums, this whole other door opened. Sandy did that. She offered up the possibilities because she lived on the other side of that door. She encouraged our ideas in rehearsal. She thought we were artists. And when she came on stage, you had to wonder, out of curiosity, who is this curious little person? She'd smile, she'd size up the room and tell stories about young lovers, secret societies of short people. She'd get everyone laughing to draw you in. And then slowly, she'd bring it down. I would get really quiet. She'd paint a picture, a beautiful picture of what life actually feels like. And she didn't shy away from her past. The mental institutions, the lithium, electric shock therapy, suicide.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't think we were going to mention that.
Well, we agreed. We're celebrating her. And how she left us has no bearing on what she gave us. Bless you, Sandy, wherever you are.
Bless you, Sandy. All right, so, all right, now, so the hunchback was feeling lonely, so she hits the country dance in the hopes that someone will ask her to boogie. Now, as she watches the couples on the dance floor, a young man with a wooden eye spies her. He works up the courage to cross the room and asks, "Would you care to dance?" The hunchback, thrilled, cries out, "Would I? Would I?" To which the young man points and shouts, "Hunchback! Hunchback!" That was one of Sandy's favorite jokes. Maybe it would have worked if we weren't on Zoom.
Yeah, or maybe if Sandy told it.
Thank you, Marsha, constructive as ever. No, she made us howl when she told us that joke. I'm sorry. I just felt it was the thing to do.
Laura, you mentioned the word howl, which reminds me, does anyone know Sandy's story about Allen Ginsberg?
No, wait for the memoir.
Wait for the memoir. I can do that. No, I can't. Someone please tell. Lori, is that what you wanted to say?
No, I'll go later. Well, I thought you had a list or something.
I do. I just didn't want to be rude.
Oh, be rude, please.
Okay, then. Scott, you're up next. Oh, and I hear Sandy has a Jack Kerouac story. Something about helping him kick out a shirt for the Ed Sullivan show. Oh, did I just blow the Kerouac story?
Yes.
Sorry, I'll stick to the script, which is Scott is an actor who starred in one of Sandy's plays. Take it away, Scott.
Okay. Hi. I was Sandy's boyfriend. Don't everybody get all awkward. No, I wasn't the only one. I first met Sandy when she came up to me after the show and immediately started asking questions about why I did this and how I felt about the character I was playing. And she had a way of asking you things that you were going to give her your full attention and you were going to answer her. She's very engaging in that way. So it was crowded, and I couldn't hear very well, and she was a bit soft-spoken, and she was little. I don't know if everybody knew that. So I'm 6'3". I had to get down on one knee to talk to her. And she looked around and she goes, shh, and everyone turned, and then she says, now would be a good time to get the ring. We had so many conversations across her kitchen table. At one point, she complained that most of her furniture was made for bigger people. And being a woodworker, I said, well, they could all be shorter. So she had me lop the legs off her desk, her sofa, most of the chairs. She kept one regular sized chair for guests. She said guests were welcome if she wasn't writing. We designed a bathroom for her house. That's where I really saw her attention to detail. She paid attention to all the details in her life. Not cat hair or dust, but the important things. how they had to be in a certain light. She gathered objects and people that she loved, and she was very particular. The house was full of intention. There was no junk. It was all beautiful, all set up beautifully. And everyone around her knew that they were chosen by her. And so I was able to help her leave the world the way that she wanted, with Gabriel and Diane, wherever you guys are. I had the honor to really escort her away. It was one of the most profound experiences I've ever had, I ever will have. It was deeply personal to see someone decide it's time, and then to stay with her and say goodbye. Before she left, she had me build a pine box in her size to her specifications. Sandy found the graveyard, place up north where people can legally be buried in the woods. 3 months ago, we dug a hole, all of us together. We sang and we cried and we witnessed. And we put that tiny coffin in the ground. She had a sign on her front door. Writing or thinking about it, no disturbances, please. In her world, the muse was always expected. We put the sign on top of her coffin because it's how we want to remember people we love. Like they're still at it. Somehow, somewhere. To Sandy. To the muse.
God. Fuck you, Scott. To the muse.
All right, let's keep going. Up next, we're really fortunate to have someone who knew Sandy long before she moved up here, back from when she was in her art school days in New York City. Chris?
Yes.
Yes, sir. I know. We have you on the list.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Okay. So Chris is up next, and then Lori.
Yes, I'm not telling a joke this time.
Oh, we thank you.
I apologize. I'll be right back. Sorry.
Am I doing this or what?
Yeah, you are. Apologies, Chris. But from here on out, everyone waits until they're called on. Otherwise, I'm blowing my job. All right, take it away, Chris.
New York City, 1960s. I put an ad in the classifieds, large apartment to share. Sandy answers. An art student, a painter. How lovely. And she is dressed to the nines, shop girl at Macy's. Her parents do not support her decision to go to art school. They do not believe in it. They do not pay for it. She works hard, attends classes, paints, paints. She wins an award. Columbia University buys her painting. I take her photo. She is beaming, always busy, too busy to really get to know me. And then she begins to deteriorate. I must stop her from hurting herself. Her parents come. They take her away. Goodbye, Sandy. I write. She writes back. She's in a hospital, then she's out of the hospital, living at home in Ohio. Broken back, body cast, back in the hospital, out again, in again. We get to know one another through the letters for the first time. Then silence, unanswered letters. Goodbye, Sandy. Years later, I find her in Berkeley, California. We are neighbors. A miracle. Construction, hammers, drills. Her home is expanding to welcome Gabriel. And she paints. Amid the dust, amid the noise, single-minded, as she breastfeeds, as he walks, talks. Her paintings, her calligraphy, a communal home full of chosen family. And then she tells me, I won't be in touch with you for some months. I'm in the middle of creating my work. Don't take it personally. I love you. But this is more important. Honesty, commitment. I did take it personally. How could I not? Goodbye, Sandy.
Okay. So should I?
Yeah. You're done, Chris?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I should say, Lori is another actor who Sandy worked with in one of her plays.
And I was one of Sandy's boyfriends too.
Yeah, I really missed out on this boyfriend thing.
Well, some of us have it, and some of us. No, I'm kidding. Yes. Okay. Well, so I noticed that Sandy flirted sometimes. Yes.
Right.
I was always just blown away by it. I didn't know what to do, and she knew that I didn't know what to do, and she used it because her flirtation. Excuse me. Her flirtation. Well, I challenge anyone to stand up to that, because it wasn't just your average wink, wink, jumpy eyebrows. That's what I thought flirting was. Holy mackerel! I mean, all right. Look, once she saw my handwriting and she said, "I see so much in there." And in my head, I thought, whoopee, free fortunes. So I leaned forward, and that was the beginning and the end. Oh, I see your loopy L tells me. Then the way you dot that I was blushing from my socks, and it would happen every single time. Anyway, I wish it could be taught, because I think it would be a valuable thing to know. But I don't think it's possible to teach that level of flirtation, because I think she was one of a kind. And that type of flirtation, well, I will never experience that again in my life. I don't believe. I can only hope. Because I bet the French have a word for it, some special word for that particular type of disarming yet safe flirtation. Or something. She just knew so much about everybody. And she loved without fear or reason. And I think, yes, I think she loved everyone the same way. I mean, I'd like to think she loved me more, but I have pretty good evidence that she didn't love me more than any of you. It was the unconditional love that flowed from that little chest of hers out to the world. And if you happened to be in front of it, you just might catch some. Oh. So my wife just told me I'm talking too much.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, all right. I'm sorry. Too much rosé. I know people are remembering Sandy's humor tonight. The way she worked it into her poetry, her plays, and I get it. It's a celebration, not a funeral. And Sandy was hilarious, but she was deep. So I'm reading a poem of hers that shines a light on her youth. A time before most of us knew her, I believe, except you, Chris, wherever you are. Oh, hello. From her Ginsberg and Kerouac days in New York City, for lack of a better description, because I think, oh, right, yes, okay, so my wife is saying just read it, so I will.
Yes.
Oh, Marcia, right, okay.
I'm gonna mute you, Marcia.
Right. The life of an artist. In those days, 15 cents bought you a Subway token or a big slice of good pizza. I'd flip the nickel or dime, lunch or school. My canvas still wet, I rode the subway. I went in late morning to lessen the chance of everyone rubbing against the paint. On good days, I enjoyed my fellow passengers looking at the canvas, then looking at me and shaking their heads. They thought it was the end of the world. On bad days, I could bear neither being an exhibit on the subway nor the garish sight of the red and orange and yellow slice of pizza. I could not even bear the gentle eyes of the painting master, much less my own eyes in the wild, desolate mirror. Then I'd wait for rush hour, buy a token, and ride nowhere without my art to the swaying caress of subway bodies, the impasto of overcoats, the glaze of stockings, touching, rocked and flung with them, singing a lullaby in my head. I am like other people. I am like other people. I am like other people.
All these people who just loved her, and she loved you all back. But I knew her before she was the poet, the playwright, the artist, when she was just a shop girl and then a wretched girl scavenging. Feral, wild, lost. Her paintings telling her to do things she should not do. And somehow my love wasn't enough.
Oh, did we lose connection?
What's happening? No, we're still here. Come on, let's keep it going. Come on.
Okay. All right. So we have some poets coming out tonight to honor Sandy. Christine is a poet from Sandy's writing group, and I think she's signing back in soon. Yep, there you are. Oh, no?
Yeah.
Christine? Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Good time for a question. Let me know, Christine, because I never thought of poets as particularly funny people.
What are you asking? If poets are funny?
Yeah.
No, I mean, we're funny, but not like Sandy. She was an anomaly.
As I suspected. And Marcia, you're up next.
Finally.
Beatnik stories, if you have them, please, and thank you.
Okay, no beatnik stories. But the first time I met Sandy was at a reading, and I was wearing high heels. So I knelt down to talk to her, and Scott, yeah, sorry to disappoint you, but she said the same thing to me, and I gave her the ring off my finger. So one of the last times I saw Sandy, there were a few things to discuss. She made me promise to write her obituary, which I did. But the other thing I remember is her saying, you know, this isn't really the send-off that I expected. Well, if she could see this right now. Hey, how many people are logged on right now?
322 at the moment.
Okay, not surprising. For someone like Sandy, she not only expected the extraordinary, I mean, she made it happen. You know, Sandy can control and mesmerize a crowd, as we all know, and this is no exception. What most amazed me about Sandy's work was the way she used her body as a vessel. Her hunchback was a medal of honor, her identity. It was a source of great discomfort, but also the source of incredible work. And yeah, she was really sexy. I was always marveling at that. Arthritis, well, it took her ability to paint, to make calligraphy, to open jars of food. And a broken back left her with a crooked spine. But, you know, the body has so many possibilities. I think about that now. I think a lot of us do as we watch our parents grow older, and as we grow older, the way the body once was and how we slowly adjust to a different body, and then we adjust some more. I used to watch older people who were hunched over or shuffling, and I think, when did they let that happen? Now I see it as the inevitable. Exercise is an attempt to stave off the inevitable. I'm not saying don't exercise, but wow. Okay, I'm getting really morose, sorry. I guess that answers your question about poets, right? Because this is so not funny. What I'm trying to say is, because of Sandy, this woman who survived manic depression, breast cancer, a shattered spine that grew into a hump, I see all my own changes through a different lens. They're a gift, a way to go deeper. She showed me how to embrace our imperfections with tenderness, or with an irony that wasn't possible for us when everything works effortlessly, to think back on ourselves in a way that isn't jealous or covetous, but is simply poetic. So I'm going to read from her book, fittingly titled The Hunchback, a piece called The Last Poem Was About the Soul. We were critiquing at the dining room table when Jessica, the youngest, said, "Let's move to the living room for the last poem." And everyone sat on the pillowed floor, and someone dragged my chair over. And Jessica flung herself full length on the rug, and her length was very full indeed. She stretched, in my eyes, across the whole room, with its arched opening and colored lights twinkling. And I wondered how many poems Jessica, coltish, dreamy, smoldering, had sat through on the stiff dining room chair, wanting to say, "Let's move," so the length of her could lengthen. Her curls arabesque to the rug, its turquoise a lagoon where the poem swam toward its raft of meaning. And I floated in and out of the poem's arched windows 3-4 decades ago, to when I knew how to arch and slink and fling, how to enter a room and make the lights go on and off. In the poem, the soul is compared to a cathedral. And Jessica, or someone said, "Do we need this architecture?" And I saw myself lying outside somewhere in a yard or a field, and my supple body I thought would last as long as my everlasting soul. Thank you, Sandy.
To the muse. Thank you, Christine.
I want to apologize for my outburst. I simply
Mute it, Chris. You had your turn.
I was feeling a sense of unpopularity. I knew it. I knew it. Even in New York, she was too cool for me, running around the Lower East Side with writers and artists while I slaved away at my day job. I didn't even know who Ginsberg and Kerouac even were back then.
Oh, do you have any of those stories, Chris?
No, stop. You are not hearing me, because none of you understand. You're all artists. You are all artists. Damn you, all of you, for being such a cluster of elitism.
What? Now, wait a minute.
Loved you all. She showered you with rose petals whenever you had an accomplishment. Your book, your reading, your play. Raise your hand if she came to your event and threw rose petals on you.
Me.
Yeah.
All of you. Because you were one of her. Me, she kept at arm's length, and now you're doing it too. Don't you see how much I admired her? How much others admire you? This secret society of creatives. You live your lives according to the muse, right? But a person like me, where the muse does not know my address, and so I've spent my life knocking, trying to get in.
You are my sunshine.
I think we're getting Zoom bombed here.
For shit's sake, mute her and mute him.
How do I?
Happy.
On the
Oh
right
my
by the
God.
I've heard about these Zoom bombers.
All right, so far there's no law against dreaming. The way she did the calligraphy, love it. The genius G blossoms on the page. It wasn't kitsch. Easily could have been, but that woman had integrity. She really led the way for me. She did it all first. We both for many years dealt with chronic illness, and she helped me see that this is the time I get to be who I am and do what I want, and I don't have to explain any of it to anybody. When we cleaned out her house, we found artists are healed by her art written over and over in different script all over the house. When I invited her son Gabriel to the radio station, I mean, he's Sandy's best creation, her biggest gift to the community. And I interviewed him. He was able to share how she lived, how she died. Now, be real, Gabriel. What was it like to be son of Sandy?
She taught me to see that trees are explosions in time. She knew what she liked and what she didn't, who she loved and who made her crazy. Literally. She cried when there was no reason and when there was every reason in the world.
When I visited her in those last days, I complimented her on her fortitude. She gave me a sidelong glance, waved her delicate fingers in the air, and said in a tiny voice, "I'm trying to be noble. But we're all walking that same road, all to the same destination." I'll leave you with this last quote she brought to life with her hand. It sits with me now stronger than ever in the light of the way she decided to leave us. "Blessed is the heart with the strength to stop it beating for honor's sake." To the muse.
To the muse.
Muse. Well said, Marcia.
Okay, Robert, your time has come. Nope, still on mute, man. Okay, when you figure that out. Oh, I gotta say, well, two things. First, one, housekeeping. Somebody is mouse clicking. Please don't mouse click, especially during Sandy's poetry. Come on. All right. Second thing, isn't it frustrating when we lose people that we love and then we can't remember the exact specific things that they said that made us love them? Well, I just remembered once I asked Sandy if she prayed. She thought about it for a second. Then she said, "No, I plea bargain." And isn't there a good Fidel Castro story? Maybe somebody tell it. Robert, do you know it?
Sorry, I don't know any good Fidel stories.
Oh, I meant anyone.
Anyone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Robert?
Yes. My acting career began and ended when I played the spirit of Pierre Bernard, Sandy's favorite painter in her play Blanche and Claude in Seclusion. It's about a young woman and man in adjoining seclusion rooms in the basement of a mental hospital. My part was a 1-minute non-speaking role, the role of a lifetime. I never wanted to be an actor, but Sandy was looking for someone who looked like Pierre Bernard, which apparently is me, but I didn't know that. I was shopping at the Quimper Mercantile, and she came up and said I had to be in her play. I even owned a suit exactly like his. That made Sandy happy. It completed her vision, and how could I say no to her? So every night, I sat backstage from the start of Act 1 through the 2-hour play, following the script closely so I wouldn't miss my cue until the last minute of the play, when I would walk on and hold up a paintbrush. And Blanche would see it and reach out, and we knew at that moment she had decided to live. Each night I was so nervous that I might miss my cue, I had to take a dose of my 4-flower rescue remedy. I'll never forget Sandy for giving me my one taste of theater, of acting, and of understanding. There are no small roles. I'll mute myself.
That indeed sounds like the role of a lifetime. Okay. So
changed my life for the role of a lifetime. Okay, I'm gonna go mute again. Bye.
Okay, bye. So our last three speakers are family. Well, Elliot, you're like family. After you, we'll hear from Sandy's sister, Diane, and then if we're lucky, Gabriel.
Gabriel, do not deny us. You hear me?
No one's telling the Fidel story. I'll take a crack at it. When Sandy was studying painting, Fidel was in New York City on his first and perhaps his only goodwill tour of the States. Columbia was a whistle stop, and Sandy was walking to class. Fidel saw her, broke away from his entourage, and crossed to her, hand outstretched. He didn't let go of her hand the whole time they chatted. Later that night, Sandy was all over the evening news, shaking hands with Fidel. The best part, Sandy had zero idea who he was. She just thought he was a large, gregarious, Spanish-speaking general, and so she welcomed him, as was her way. Elliot.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elliot. I've known Gabriel since elementary school, and I love him tremendously, so it means a lot to be able to be here and share this with all of you. I've been thinking a lot about what it was like when I would go over to Gabriel and Sandy's house when I was a kid. And I came from a family, I might be the least artistically inclined person in this room, this chat room. I come from very rational stock, right? We don't have the language of art. It just doesn't come naturally. And so when I'd go over to their house, it always seemed like this wild and magical place where things were allowed that weren't allowed in my house. Like Gabriel had his own basement room with his own private entrance. So that just seemed like he was even more independent and cool. The whole place had this kind of secret garden feel to it. And I really loved it. So like I said, it was really different from where I came from. My house was pretty, I don't know, normal. I didn't really understand all of the art in Sandy's house when I was a kid, but I do feel as though prolonged exposure to Sandy and Gabriel has started to crack me open a bit. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe by the time I'm fully grown up, I'll start to really understand the impact that it's had on my life. Start to get a little of that authenticity and the courage to be my own self the way that Sandy and Gabriel do. And look, since Gabriel might not be speaking, I thought maybe I could tell the Ginsberg story as Sandy told it to me. What do you think, Gabriel? Yeah? Okay. All right. Okay, so she met him when she was studying painting at Columbia, and before, she was committed for the first time. And she always wore those two braids at the front of her hair, even when we were growing up, even when she died. So Ginsberg would touch her braids, and she would spend the night with him. But, I mean, she was a virgin, and he was gay. I think at one point he did kiss her elbow, and she really liked that. And I mean, you see, these are the kinds of stories that she told me. And I was a kid, and I was like, what? The Kerouac story, that's from her time in New York City, too. So I guess they all hung out a lot.
God damn it. I'm sorry. I'm leaving. Goodbye.
Oh.
Goodbye, Sandy. Fuck all of you.
Wow.
Keep going. I like hearing these stories.
Okay, man. I mean, I was just going to say that here was Sandy kind of on the verge of her first, breakdown. And she's really fitting in great with these guys who became known for, I don't know, living and creating outside of the norm. But she was locked up, and they ended up famous. And so, I don't know, maybe it's different for women, or maybe it was then. I have a daughter now, so I hope that it's truly changed, that there's equal opportunity no matter how weird you are. Now, after we grew up, there was this massive fire in Oakland, and lots of houses burned down. including that magical home where Sandy and Gabriel lived. And it seems somehow fitting. And it's the same thing now that Sandy's not with us. That there's something that's really been lost. And so as I grow older, I want to teach my kids to truly be themselves and be authentic. Now, Gabriel will help with that. And Sandy's going to live on inside of me in that way. And I guess I feel like that's sort of who we are, isn't it? It's the people we've loved who have become part of us and who are always going to help define who we are and sort of always be a part of us. And she had courage. She really loved her life. I want to be reminded of that when things feel less magical or even when they feel wondrous. That's it.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Thank you so much, Elliot, and I just want to thank everybody so much for coming.
I gotta speak. I want to speak.
Who the fuck is that?
Oh, wait.
I gotta speak. Excuse
It's
me.
that Zoom bomber again.
I'm not a bomber. How do you?
Come on, you gotta be kidding with all this Saurus.
How do I get the camera to the way? Can?
At least he's wearing clothes. I hear they usually make.
Ew.
It's Walter.
Is Walter on the list?
I'm Lutheran, so I gotta.
It's okay. It's okay. He's
Yes. Hi. I'm a Lutheran. Okay. I'm guilty, and she was Jewish. Does that make sense?
Not
No.
entirely. I'll go back on mute now.
You're here for a reason. We are all here for a reason. That's obvious. I mean, why are we here? Love. It's one of those coordinates of time and space. She was there, I was here, and then all of a sudden I was there and she was here, and this is what it is. This is the culmination. This is the celebration. This is the whole thing.
this is Walter, everyone. This is Gabriel's father.
Because there are no mistakes. Being a Lutheran, I have to confess to my daughter who's watching this tonight. My darling daughter was in hi, and she's an adult. Honey, I was cheating on your mother. My darling daughter was in Ohio when it occurred. She was a little girl when it happened, which happens to be where Sandy lived when she was a little girl. Sandy and I met during a California summer, a place where summers burn brighter and more freely than all other summers on the planet. There was a full moon, and all of a sudden, everything changed. Sandy asked me for that night only, for a reason. No mistakes. It was safe. It was wonderful. The parameters were set. And 9 months later, Gabriel. Whenever you moved into Sandy's presence, the delineation for you and her was exact and separate. The reason I say this is because, let me see a show of hands. How many people here have been hospitalized for mental aberrations? This is an exclusive association because the Muse talk to us in quantum truths, multiple truths, all of them contrary, all of them perfectly true. When Sandy and I talked, I realized, oh my God, I'm treading into my own mind. This is only through our collective experience that we find out who the hell we are. We're just a bunch of ghosts. Happen to be in a room celebrating somebody who's a ghost. Always has been, always will be eternal. It's what happens when you turn yourself over to the Muse. She turned herself over to the Muse, and this is the result. You can't create art like this. This is Sandy. In her parents' deli in Cleveland, the neighborhood was made on that toboggan she rode down snowy banks as a little girl. We were Depression-era babies. We were so lucky. We got the best of America. We did not have the same values. There was nothing in common, nothing except turning ourselves over to the muse. I am here, and you were there, and you were here, and I am there.
That was Walter, everybody. Thank you for being here, Walter.
Yeah.
Okay, so I knew and loved Sandy my entire life. She was always my big sister, no matter how small she got. She seemed to be a gentle person, but she was fierce. Our parents wanted her to go to a college they approved of, meet a nice guy, and get married. But she wanted to be an artist. When my parents cut her off financially, they said, "We're not paying you to learn how to starve to death." And I think that's because both gave up on their art. Our mother was a trained concert pianist, and our father was an architect. And then the Great Depression happened. So they started a deli. And they worked hard to support us 4 kids. They couldn't fathom that somebody would want to do something so badly that they actually would starve to death. Smoking cigarettes from the ashtrays of fancy hotel lobbies, discarded pizza crusts on subway seats, a charm bracelet found in the street. The bracelet was talking to Sandy, telling her stories. Concerned, our parents came. They took her to a psychiatrist. Sandy showed the doctor the bracelet. The man had left the woman, and heartbroken, she dropped it as she walked down the cold winter New York streets alone and sobbing. And now that Sandy owned it, the woman spoke to her through the bracelet. The psychiatrist told my parents to institutionalize her immediately. They didn't have things like lithium back then. They had electric shock treatment, and it was brutal. The fact that Sandy survived it, not once, not twice, but 3 times. After the 3rd time in the asylum, there were no more problems. I told her about the sparkling waves of San Diego, the sunshine in the winter. "Come with me," I said. We took a road trip across the country that rivaled Thelma and Louise. But in the back of my mind, I worried. What if this was too much fun? What if it sent her back to the hospital? She went north to Berkeley on her own, which also worried me. I called, "Sandy, how are you doing?" And she said, "Send my stuff. I'm not coming back." Was it another episode? So I moved up there too. And she was fine. On medication, living her life. Neither of us married or planned to have children. But when Sandy was 36, she changed her mind. On a full moon, she tried out the most seductive line ever said to a man in the history of flirting. Only she wasn't flirting. "Would you like to make love to me tonight? And if a baby comes, you'll have no rights and no responsibilities."
Yes.
She abandoned painting and took up calligraphy. She couldn't bear the idea of words stuck inside a book on the shelf. Let them out. Let them be art. They all had a living history, like the charm bracelet. But now she had a way to channel her empathy onto the page. When arthritis made calligraphy impossible, she captured what it feels like to be manic or depressed in poetry. And then her playwriting career started. 7 plays produced, winning awards. And yes, it's true, there were people that she did not choose who barged into her life. Sandy never had the ability to say, "I don't like you." She would say, "I'm busy writing." So Sorry, Chris, if you're still listening. Hers was a life filled with courage. And never was that more true than in the way she took charge of her death. It was frightening, and it was real. When she was young, she made a pact with God. Make me an artist, and I won't ask for love. The idea of suicide wasn't alien to Sandy. An entire lifetime passed between the time we constantly worried she would do it and 3 months ago, when she did. When the madness stopped, the suicidal thoughts stopped, too. But strangely, this time it didn't feel like robbery or theft. She wrote this poem 6 years ago when she thought breast cancer was going to win. It didn't. It wasn't her time, just yet. The vestibule. Hitch your wagon to a star, Daddy used to say. I had a wagon, and Ohio had a million stars. The hum of someone else's blood dripping from a bag, like a watch ticking off in a far-off room. Clicking. Come back, come back. I'm not a traveler. I never want to go anywhere. You have to drag me kicking and screaming. I want to be home, where the muse knows my address. We had fun. We had so much fun. Here is the cold knob of death's door. Or maybe just the vestibule. A chamber between entrance and what's next. A means of passage. Kiss me now, while I'm still alive.
The muse.
The muse.
The muse.
Okay, that's everyone. Unless Gabriel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes!
my man. All right. Yes.
Hi, everyone.
Buddy.
Hi.
Yeah.
You've all been talking about my mom as the artist, the playwright, poet. I just knew her as mom, so I'm kind of left wondering what to say.
I'll give you my four flower rescue remedy if I could.
Dude.
Thanks.
I swear by it.
I'm gonna mute you, Robert.
I'll Amazon it to you. All right.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you, Robert. So, my mom, she wanted a kid and she made that happen. I've been thinking about it. I mean, she's always been on this hermitage path. I mean, when I turned 18, she moved out of the house. And when I told people how she was never in a relationship, some really intuitive people would say, well, there was you. Yeah, right. It's like sometimes you don't see the blue of the sky.
Snap.
And growing up, she was the happiest person I know, always making new friends, excited about the next creative endeavor. Young people were always coming by to hang out with her. It's funny because in junior high, I had this phase where I was really embarrassed by her. We had this 1972 Volkswagen Beetle, and I could hear her coming from blocks away to pick me up. We would drive through Berkeley, and I'd see a group of friends, and I would tell her to duck as she was driving me, and she'd do it. She made me French toast every morning for like 10 years. No matter how many pieces she would make, I would always leave a half a piece uneaten. It's just a thing. I refused to eat it. And she never made me finish my food. She never guilt-tripped me about it. She just let me figure things out my own way. I don't know, when I was a kid, 5 or 6, and she would tell me about her mom who died before I was born. And that was so sad for my mom. I remember her crying about it and me thinking, it was so long ago and you still cry about it. That's strange. And now I don't think it's so strange. Of course, everything is shifted now with my daughter, Skylar, and I constantly ask, what would my mom do? What would she do in this situation? My best friend, Elliot, was here with me in her last few days, and he told me she never really figured out how to be angry with you. When I'd misbehave, she'd just be sad or disappointed, and just seeing the disappointment in her eyes would be the worst punishment. At one point in my 20s, I went through this hitchhiking phase. And when I talked with her about it, and I said, don't you worry about me? She told me when I was little, someone saw her cringing when I was playing, and they said, you need to be okay with him getting hurt. And trust that that is going to be okay. And she took it to heart. My whole life, I feel like one of the best things she offered me was a sort of trust and freedom to screw things up on my own and faith that I was going to figure it out. So I just wrote a couple of memories down. She had this little paint sample to show how much cream she liked in her coffee. So you knew exactly how much to pour in there. She had this long stick she used to use to sort of like open and close the curtains. She had all these tools to like help her live in a regular sized world. So when my daughter was a baby, my mom would use that long stick to, kind of reach up and twirl the chandelier and cast these little light shards, and it would just delight Skylar. And I remember watching my mom struggling to do it, and I'd say, Mom, please stop. It was so hard for her, but she wanted to make this magic for Skylar, and it was just... I grew up wishing she was more strict. I remember feeling like other kids were tougher and better at bullying. They were like, And I would say, Mom, I'm getting picked on. And she would just respond with this love and sympathy and a sort of sadness, but she never did that, you got to fight back thing. And I remember thinking other kids' parents would tell them to fight back. I'm mad at you for making me soft. Of course, now I'm glad that's how she was. Towards the end, my mom started asking me about the afterlife. What happens next? That was something she was never really interested in before. Her body was not working for her. Her health was solid, but she couldn't get out of bed. And she didn't want to be dependent. And the only way to do that legally was to stop eating and drinking. So as many of you know, and maybe some of you don't, she made that decision to stop. When I asked her what she wanted to do before she died, she said she wanted to hug Skylar one more time. And then she said she wanted to finish her memoir. So I opened up my computer and I said, let's work on it now. And we did. We'd spend a few hours on it. And then like out of the blue, she'd say, give me some water. And it was like she found the will to live again. Eventually she'd drift off to sleep. And then at like 3 a.m, Gabriel, let's keep working. It's what she wanted to do. To finish. When I was a kid, I loved to dance. I still do. It was something my mom took so much pride in, was watching me dance. It was just the looser and more fluid I became, the more tangled and shrunken she became. If I was dancing in my room, my mom would always pause to watch. But when I was a teenager and I danced in my room, I would just shut the door on her. It really bothers me. I was so selfish back then. And she didn't put boundaries on me. She let me find my own. So I guess it was my way of pushing against them. When I was little, when she was sad, I'd sing to her. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. And the clouds would lift. When I was a teen, I could have chased the clouds away by just letting her watch me dance. But I didn't, and I should have. When my mom first broke her hip, and I could tell this was the beginning of, I asked for wisdom on how to be with this. And one thing that someone said that really stuck with me was this: let her hold you. And you know, she was just so tiny, and I had become this person who was used to doing so much for her. But I would lay my head on her lap, and she would put her hand on my head, and I would just be there with her. And it became something that felt so good to do. The best thing that she said to me was, "You're a good boy." And I feel like I want to say, may all children feel so wanted and adored. May all parents feel so grateful.
Thank you, Gabriel. Let's take a moment to remember who guided us and who loved us the most in our own lives. I am an old woman named after my mother. My old man's another child that grow old. If dreams were lightning, thunder was desired, this old house would burn down a long time ago. Yeah, make me an angel that flies from Montgomery. Make me a poster of an old rodeo. Just give me one thing that I can hold on to believe in this living. It's just a hard way to go. Well, I was a young girl, I had me a cowboy. He wasn't much to look at, just a free rambling man. But that was a long time, no matter how I tried. The years, they just go by like a broken down dam. Yeah, make me an angel that flies from Montgomery. Make me a poster of an old rodeo. Just give me one thing that I can hold on to believe in this living. It's just a hard way to go.
Believe in this living.
To the muse.
Muse.
To the muse.
To the muse.
To the muse.
When I see my baby off to school, I close the door and leave this world. There wasn't any time left for me to ask my questions. With all the lost children, with all the betrayal and heartbreak and cruelty and endless arrows of pain, how do you go on? And the author of the Lacuna said, no matter how rough the night, morning always wins.
Yeah, that's right.